Okay, we're going to start now a topic called differentiation. So differentiation and then its partner integration make up a thing called calculus. Now we can do lots of different things with differentiation and with integration, and you'll meet them this year, and if you go on to do A level you'll meet them again in lower sixth and in upper sixth. So the main sort of part of differentiation is really to find the gradient of a curve. So if we look at a straight line, we've been able to find the gradient of that line since junior school. You find the rise over the run, you know that the positive gradient, the line's going uphill, negative gradient is going downhill. So we can find the gradient of that line, no problem, and it will be a number. But the problem is then, if we have a curve, well, we can't find the gradient of that curve. It doesn't exist. But what we can do is find the gradient of a tangent. So we can draw a tangent here and we can find the gradient. We can draw a tangent here on my very dodgy curve and find the gradient, but it's always going to be different. Okay? So the gradient of a tangent is called dy by dx. Okay, so we'll say it as dy by dx. Now, we'll get on to what we use this for and into tangents and things like that later, but we're just going to look at the basics of differentiation now at the minute. So the rule, if y equals kx to the power of n, where k and n are constants, so that just means they're numbers, so that could be 2 and that could be 3, whatever. Then dy by dx equals kn x to the power of n minus 1. So we multiply n by k and then we take 1 away from the power. So it sounds complicated, but whenever you get going with it, it'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so here's your first question. So y equals 4x cubed plus 6x squared minus 7x minus 5, and we want to find dy by dx. Now I'm going to write it out slightly differently for this question. I wouldn't expect you to do this in a test or anything like that, but just to show you where a couple of these things comes from. So we know that x, we can write it as x to the power 1. We would never do that, but we know that x to the power 1 and x are the same. We all know that x to the power 0, anything to the power 0 equals 1. So minus 5 or minus 5 x to the power 0 are exactly the same thing. So to find dy by dx, we follow our rule. So we multiply the power by the number in front, so 3 fours are 12, and then we take 1 away from the power. So we'll get 12x squared. We multiply 2 by 6 and get 12, take 1 away and you will get 1. We multiply 1 by minus 7 and we get minus 7. Now that would give you then, if you take 1 away, x to the power of 0, which is just 1. So we just leave it off and we'll write this as minus 7. And if we differentiate the last bit, if we apply the rule, we say 0 times minus 5 gives us nothing. So when we differentiate here, we would get nothing. So in general, if you have y equals a number times x, when you differentiate it, you just get the number. And if you have y equals a number, when you differentiate that, you get 0. Okay, so our next one then y equals 7x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. And we have to find dy by dx. So, dy by dx then. We say 3 7s are 21. Take 1 away from the power, we get x squared. 2 2s are 4. Take 1 away from the power and we just get x. We've got an x here, so when we differentiate that we get minus 3. And when we differentiate 1, it disappears. So our next one. Y equals 2x cubed plus mx squared minus nx plus 3, where m and n are constants, so they're just numbers. And we have to find dy by dx. So 3 times 2 gives us 6, and then take 1 away from the power, we get 2. Remember, this is just a whole number, this is just a constant, so it's 2 times m will give you 2m, and then take 1 away from the power, you get x. Minus nx, this is the same thing that we do with the minus 3x and the one before, we just get minus n. And then 3, when we differentiate a constant, it goes to 0, so it disappears. Okay, so then the only way they can really make it any harder is to give you things like fractions. Okay, so y equals an 1/8 x to the power of 4 minus 3/5 x squared plus 7x, and again we have to find dy by dx. So we have 4 times an 1/8, which is a half, and then take 1 away from 4, we get 3. Minus 3/5 times 2 gives you minus 6/5, and then take 1 away from the power, we just get 1. 7x, differentiate that, we get 7. And one more, so y equals 8 plus x minus 2/9 x cubed plus 3/4 x to the power of 8. And again, find dy by dx. Okay, so it doesn't matter what order they come in, you do it exactly the same way. This time we've got the constant at the start, so when we differentiate a number on its own, it goes to 0. Remember, x is the same as 1x, so when we differentiate that, we get 1. Differentiating with the fraction now, so minus 2/9 times 3, it's going to give you minus 2/3 x. Take 1 away, so it's squared, and then 3/4 times 8 is going to give you 6. Take 1 away, we'll get 6x to the power of 7.